Good morning, Wayne Heilman. You're at home today, Wayne. Permission. Ross, you need a grant permission to record.
Oh yeah. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Well, I'm good. Yeah, I'm at home. In my Hawaiian shirt as usual.
Love it.
No, I think we all ought to wear Hawaiian shirts one day.
Maybe. I know our team would go for it. Lighten the mood a little bit.
Exactly.
Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. It's Thursday, August 6th, weekly press call from the Department of Labor and Employment. I'm Cher Hovand, Deputy Executive Director and Chief Communications Officer, and we have Jeff Fitzgerald, Director of the Unemployment Insurance Division, and Ryan Gedney, Senior Economist with the department. Jeff and I will cover three things this morning before we turn it over to Ryan for his updates. The first update will be on what we're seeing with regard to fraud. And as some of you have covered, the increase in incidents of people receiving Relia cards and what to do. The second thing we'll provide an update on is the deployment of our phase 2 of our virtual agent tool that launched today. This is our virtual tool from Google. And then a very, very brief on an update on the FPUC benefit, Federal Pandemic Unemployment Compensation. And I say brief because we know nothing, but we can certainly remind you of the impact the expiration of FPUC had on our state. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. As you know, and we've mentioned during many press calls, given the historic levels of unemployment claims we've seen due to COVID, we've also seen an increase in fraud. And one of those indicators that some of you have covered are the increase in Relia cards, which is the unemployment insurance benefit debit card provided by U.S. Bank, being received by individuals who have not filed for unemployment. This is most likely an individual who has had their identity compromised in the past from one of the large security breaches over recent years. And unfortunately, fraudsters are now taking that personal identifying information and filing fraudulent claims with it. Within the last couple of weeks, we have seen a greater reporting of people who are receiving not just one or two, but several Relia cards in the mail, again, have never applied for unemployment insurance benefits. And we have, as we've reported before, 5 steps that somebody should take if they in fact receive one of these Relia cards in the mail. Number 1, they need to call the number on the back of the card and have it deactivated. They also need to complete a fraud form on our website at coloradoui.gov. We actually updated this form last week to create a little more ease of use with regard to these specific instances of Relia cards being received. That's step 1. Step 2 is they need to alert all 3 credit reporting agencies. Step 3 is they should file a police report with local law enforcement. Step 4 is they may want to notify the Federal Trade Commission at identitytheft.gov. That's available online. It's an automated reporting system. And then step 5 is they should document everything, the instance, all the details, and keep it somewhere that they can refer to if in fact they would have a subsequent breach of their PII or their identity. So again, we have in fact seen an increase in the instance of multiple Relia cards being received by people. There are 5 steps outlined on our website that somebody should take. The most important step is to deactivate the card and notify us. That triggers our unit to flag it as fraud. We can stop any benefits that would be going out and again, prevent those benefits from leaving the department, protect the integrity of our benefits program. So with that, I'm going to see if Jeff would like to talk about another tool that we've implemented to detect fraud or fill in any gaps of anything I've missed.
Yes, I can do that. Thanks, Cher. I think you covered the identity theft and the steps that a claimant must take or should take quite well. Just wanted to add some additional points with regards to our activities on helping to combat fraud. I've talked about this a little bit in the past, but it's been some weeks, so I'll cover it again. And that is, there's a tool called the Suspicious Actor Repository. That is a tool that has been stood up by our partners, our national partners at the National Association of State Workforce Agencies, or NASWA, as they're sometimes called. And what it does is it is a repository where all the states and territories across the nation can put in information with regards to data points and fraud and characteristics on fraudulent claims. So it's a national repository, and it helps states work together to combat fraud, because these fraud cases do not recognize state borders, and often fraudsters have claims in multiple states. To date, we had been part of that partnership and been leveraging that tool, but it had been more of a manual process with regards to inputting data and getting data out of it. Happy to report that this week we're actually going live with a upgraded enhancement with regards to that tool. So for all pandemic unemployment assistance claims moving forward, again, that's the area where we've had the most fraudulent activity. It is going to create a real-time interface with that SAR tool. So on every new claim and every continued claim, it will bounce that information against that suspicious actor repository tool, and it will provide us real-time hits if in fact there are a hit against that. That'll help us to take action quickly and or deny a claim from going through to start with. So that is yet another upgrade of our work with regards to combating fraud and stopping it at the front door, as well as with regards to any continued claims, because sometimes claimant fraudsters can get in and start with one set of information, then evolve the elements of their claim to help disguise what's going on, and that's going to help further combat continued claims that are fraudulent. That's all I have on that topic.
And before we answer Wayne's question about any kind of data points around this kind of fraud, two other data points to share is that we are increasing the size of our investigations unit, currently investigating thousands of instances of fraud and working with Secret Service, federal and local agencies to detect and prosecute once we identify the criminals behind the fraudulent activity. And
So I can speak to that question if you'd like, Cher.
sure, please.
So I want to be clear before I answer this question that this is fraudulent activity we're stopping before it enters the system. That's an important distinction to make when I talk about this level of activity. But what we're seeing is on any given week, we can have anywhere from 30 to 50% of claims that are filed that we, based upon a number of characteristics, again, which I'm not going to elaborate on, but that have been designed in-house as well as leveraged from state partners as well as national law enforcement. 30 to 50% of those are being stopped at the front door before they are filed. So that'll give you some estimate or some sense, and this is not unusual with regards to the activity nationally. If anything, other states are getting more. But we're proud of the fact that we're identifying and recognizing and stopping a lot of fraudulent activity before it gets in. And on new claims, it can be somewhere between 30 to 50%, depending on the day or the week.
Jeff, do you want to take Tamara's question?
Yes, so that would be a real-time interface. Sorry, I should read the question for those that are listening. The question was, with regards to the suspicious actor repository, how long might that take? It's a real-time interface, so it's behind the scenes and it's all automated. So as soon as we hit the submit button, it's going to send that file, and there's going to be a rather real-time bounce back on that file if there's a hit. So it won't delay claims, legitimate claims, by days or even hours, really. Question was, when I talk about 30 to 50% of stopping fraud claims at the front door, that was specifically to FPUC claims. We have less activity of this nature in the conventional system. There are just simply more checks and balances. In the regular UI system, there's a relationship between an employee and an employer, so it helps us to balance the information that's being reported by the claimant in terms of the legitimacy of the claim.
Also, just to note, again, primarily the PUA benefits, that's the federally funded self-employed gig worker independent contractor program. Again, because these are contractors that are doing 1099 work outside of a regular employee-employer relationship, unfortunately, this program has given more opportunity to criminal activity. And as Jeff said, this is not unique to Colorado. In fact, other states are even seeing far higher incidence of this type of fraud with PUA claims in Colorado is. And we quickly implemented measures weeks ago to stop these benefits as quickly as possible. But the key here is that people immediately should call, deactivate the card if they've received it, and let us know.
So there's two more questions that came in quickly. I can address them both. Tamara, let me be clear. When it was still a manual function, it was still real time. It just wasn't hitting every new claim and every continued claim. So it was the same sort of bounce back in terms of time frame to data entry versus response. This one's just integrated across all new claims. So that's the difference in terms of the upgrade. Why are we seeing so many fraudulent claims? We've talked about this in some level of depth before, but I'm happy to go through it again. Specifically within the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program, the reason we're seeing such high levels is because of the some of the design with regards to how one goes about starting a claim in those systems. Again, it's designed for contract workers, independent contractors, gig workers, self-employed, and the like. So when the facts that are being presented to demonstrate the claim are basically one-sided, and it is based in large detail on self-attestation, then it provides an easier path to leverage stolen identities and submit fraudulent claims. The second reason is that PUA also had a rather liberal backdate element to it, going all the way back to February of 2020. And before FPUC stopped, there was additional $600 for every claim, every week payment. So it was a potential for a high revenue in terms of backdating to February of this year, as well as collecting an additional $600. So that's why it's an easy target for getting a large paycheck, or a large check, I should say, going back several weeks. As we've talked about, we stopped the backdating several weeks ago, where you can only backdate up to 1 week within the state of Colorado. If you can demonstrate that you have a claim that legitimately should be backdated further, you'd have to speak to one of our agents to do so.
Wayne, go ahead, Jeff.
I was just going to get to that. Was fraud responsible for an increase in PUA claims in July? And Ryan can add in if he feels like there's more to add here. But I think we're seeing, it's hard to project what, I wouldn't say exclusively. We've seen basically a flattening, more or less, of PUA claims as well as regular claims, and there may be some variance of slight percentages week to week, but it's hard to pin down. I personally think that that's stabilized, and sort of that's the new normal for us in terms of weekly claims, and we'll see a little bit of variance just based upon activity that's normal across the economy. But Ryan, anything to add to that?
I just add that when we report, for July, when we're reporting PUA activity, we're really trying to take out any potential fraud claims in terms of kind of what we're reporting. We really want to capture the economic activity in terms of, this is someone who's actually trying to file a PUA claim. So Wayne, I really wouldn't attribute those spikes to fraud, since we're really making an adjustment for that. And again, like I said, the last couple of weeks, it's tough to kind of determine what's driving the PUA claims activity on a week-to-week basis, because this is such a new program. We don't have historical data to go off of. It's a relatively new population in terms of those who receive unemployment insurance. So some of that remains a mystery, but I would say I would not attribute fraud to that spike that we saw in the prior 2 weeks.
Would you like me to just keep going down the question, Cher?
Can we jump to Aldo's question, and then we'll get all
Sure.
the fraud questions out of the way and then jump to the job attached work search.
Yeah, that was my plan. So I am not able to, what are the penalties for fraud? We have penalties that are set. I'm not able to cite them off the top of my head, to be completely honest. We can follow up on that question. Are we working with the AG on any active cases? We're actually working with a number of national law enforcement agencies on several of the more widespread sort of rings that are more national in scope. So we're working with many partners on different fraudulent activities. That's where I would leave that. Do you want me to segue to the
Sure.
the job attached?
Sure.
So yeah, I want to be clear about this. The difference between state of affairs back in March when the pandemic and the massive increase of increased claims activity started, and then also the governor's shelter in place. At that particular time, what we did is we basically instituted, based upon the shelter at home provision, job attachments unilaterally across all claimants. So that has been lifted. However, so that's the difference between the state of affairs as it was in March versus what it is today in August. And but I want to be very clear, one can still have job attachment. It's just they have to go through the formal process to demonstrate job attachment status, which means attestation from their employer that they do intend to rehire them. And so it's not that job attachment's been eliminated, it's that there's a more formal process, the normal process that one must go through to get that designation. And then once they have that, it will continue for up to 16 weeks.
And I think it's important to emphasize with work search requirements have always been a part of unemployment eligibility. It helps to protect the integrity of the payments, and it helps ensure that the person is actually out of work, actively seeking work, and able to work. So while it's been new to us given the pandemic, as Jeff said, it's always been a part of the UI program. And job attached is something we're working through and clarifying work search requirements if you're job attached, but it is fundamental to the integrity of benefit payments within the program that you look for work while you're out of work and able to work. So with that, I'm going to pivot and just a couple quick updates before we turn it over to Ryan, and then we can circle back with other questions. So as we reported, we launched our virtual agent phase 2 project today. Virtual Agent Phase 1 was launched on July 15th. This provided online or by phone automated access through a virtual agent to answer very high-level general questions about unemployment. And if those answers were not satisfactory, then a caller could request a callback from one of our agents. So since deploying that Phase 1, July 15th, we've had over 350,000 user sessions. 350,000 sessions within the virtual agent tool, and about 13% of those resulted in callback requests. So as we committed when we launched Phase 1, we launched Phase 2 August 5th, yesterday late, and that provides additional expanded functionality, specifically after an identification process with the claimant, either again online or by phone. An individual has the opportunity to get very specific claim status and information specific to them. So for example, claim and benefit payment status, workforce center registration, weekly benefit amount and benefit amount remaining, appeal status, collectively, which attribute to about 30% of the calls, the reasons for a callback, or the calls that were coming into our call center. So again, have no metrics yet, as that is been deployed less than 24 hours, but we do believe that it will just continue to help us address what we saw with the call center activity now that we're providing more automated 24/7 access to information and services. Still, however, if an individual, although they are able to access all of that claim information, still does require a callback, they still have the option to request that through the automated system. We actually increased the capacity for callbacks 30% and have added Saturdays. This is due to a decrease in callback requests that are allowing us to expand capacity. The other indicator that we have is we're seeing some no-shows for callbacks. About 18% of callbacks being requested are resulting of the individual not responding to our callback. So it's really important that people, if they get answers to their questions in advance of the callback, that they call and cancel that with us, and that provides greater availability to people who do need assistance with their claims. That is kind of the high level. Jeff, anything to add on Virtual Agent Phase 2 by Google?
Just one clarification. If they do get their question answered and they want to cancel, they can also do that online.
Yes. So Tamara's question, help offset volume to call. So Tamara, we don't take inbound calls into the call center anymore. Again, the virtual agent tool by Google, phase 1 was very high level general responses to questions and then a request for a callback. Phase 2 today is more specific claim information after an identification process that it is the claimant. So there are no wait times. There are no busy signals. This is a fully automated system. We expected when we launched in July that we would see a backlog of callback requests, but as the data indicates, we're seeing fewer requests for callback, which is allowing us to expand that capacity, adding Saturdays. So I would say overall the tool is performing at or better than expected and helping us meet the demand for information.
Can I provide one clarification to that, Chair?
Sure.
So as of today, we are still doing inbound calls simply for Spanish calls only. Phase 3 of the virtual agent deployment, which will be later in August, will focus on moving the Spanish calls to the same format as the English calls.
Very, very important point. Yes. The question on callbacks, Jeff, you want to take that one?
Yeah. So Cher hit on the fact that we've we've expanded capacity, and also we are prompting folks to cancel. So it's opening up additional slots. So that has helped a great deal. So there are spots actually open starting in early September. Not surprised that we're that far booked out. That is what we predicted. As we talked about, there's going to be a large number of folks that we need to work through that we're trying to get through to us, and this provides them an avenue to do so. So I agree with Cher. It's performing far better than we had even hoped with regard to the automation and the capacity for them to navigate self-service themselves and not require a callback. But nonetheless, even the 13% is still a large number of folks that are trying to get in contact with us. But opening up the capacity and encouraging people to cancel has opened up additional slots that are near towards us. So early September, we have slots that are open.
And I would just add that the individuals who are waiting for a callback, we will be deploying an email campaign or an outbound call campaign to them, advising them of the new functionality we've added, because there is a chance that what they were waiting for assistance with now can be answered through the phase 2 of the virtual agent. Where can they cancel? Jeff, I don't know where they cancel the callback.
Yeah, so when you go on to our website, the virtual agent will pop up automatically in that site, and that is the mechanism and the place that they should go. It is not integrated into their MyUI account, no.
And then before we do a quick FPUC update, again, the issues that we're driving calls into our call center: claim status, benefit payment status, benefit amount, appeal status. All of these top issues now are self-service automated through the virtual agent. So we do believe, we're hopeful that the people, again, who are waiting for a callback will try the tool, the improved and enhanced tool, get the answers to their questions, and can cancel their callback and make room for somebody else who may have an issue with their claim that actually does require speaking with an agent. That could be they have not yet uploaded documents, they have wages from another state, a variety of things that likely do require assistance from an agent. And so I know Ryan has some updates, so I quickly want to just, the update on the expiration of FPUC, federal pandemic unemployment compensation. Again, this is the $600 a week. The last payable week in Colorado for this federally funded benefit was the week ending July 25th. Again, we have no indicators, solid indicators at least, at congressional action in terms of extending the 600, reducing it, or a variety of other proposals. We do estimate that about 400,000 people were impacted by the expiration of the FPUC benefit, contributing about 150 million weekly into our state's economy. So obviously this was a critical resource and lifeline to hundreds of thousands of Coloradans out of work. And as soon as we have any indications from Congress on what the direction is and the future of FPUC or another program, we'll certainly communicate that to you and to everybody who is on unemployment currently in the state. Anything to add, Jeff, on that? Okay, Ryan, off to you.
Thanks, Cher. All right, as always, let's start off with the initial claims data. Our most recent data available is for the week ending August 1st. 7,138 regular UI initial claims were processed for the week ending August 1st. That marks the first time since the week of March 14th that regular initial claims have failed to exceed the previous record weekly high of 7,749 set during the Great Recession. The weekly average number of regular initial claims in 2009 and 2010 was 4,800. So it will still be important to monitor how long current claims activity remains above that level. Over the past 2 months, regular initial claims have averaged around 8,800 per week. Additionally, 7,585 PUA initial claims were filed last week, bringing the total number of initial claims for the week of August 1st to 14,723. Over 160,000 PUA initial claims have been filed since the program became active April 20th. About 223,000 regular UI continued claims were registered for the week ending July 25th. That's the second straight week within that range. Additionally, nearly 75,000 continued claims for PUA were filed the same week. And as we mentioned in today's press release, 12,910 continued claims from the Pandemic Emergency Unemployment Compensation, or PEUC program, were processed the week of the 25th. As a reminder, PEUC extends regular unemployment benefits by 13 weeks. There was a similar extension program established in 2008 called Emergency Unemployment Compensation, or EUC. And over time, that offered up to 4 tiers of extended benefits for eligible claimants. EUC averaged 51,900 weekly continued claims from 2009 to 2011. So as we see, we will see decreased activity and continued claims for regular UI. Some of that is driven by people returning to work, but some of that also is others shifting to PEUC. So it will be important going forward to really kind of pay attention to the entire composition. In total, for the week of the 25th, nearly 311,000 continued claims were filed for all programs. And we did also add on the PDF that we attached to the press release a couple of PEUC slides on the continued claims section. So make sure to check that out. The department paid out $85 million in regular UI benefits for the week of August 1st. A total of $325 million in regular UI benefits were paid in July, which is lower than the $418 and $373 million paid out in June and May, respectively. But it is slightly higher than the April total of $315 million. Since the end of March, or an 18-week period, close to $1.5 billion in regular UI benefits have been paid in Colorado. In comparison, a combined total of $2 billion in regular benefits were distributed in 2009 and 2010. Additionally, 490 million in pandemic unemployment assistance benefits have been paid out, along with over 2.3 billion in FPUC. And while small relative to the other programs, nearly 9 million have been paid out in PUC benefits since the program became active in Colorado early last month. A substantial amount in benefits were paid out in EUC during the Great Recession, as those totals exceeded 2.5 billion from 2009 to 2011. We expect PUC benefit amounts to rise significantly over time as more individuals shift from regular to extended UI. The department estimates that 418,809 Coloradans received a UI payment in July. That includes 251,345 individuals who received benefits through regular UI, 156,299 who were paid through PUA, and 10,582 who last received a benefit from the aforementioned PUC program. And we have a remaining 583 who are attached to federal and ex-service member benefits. Approximately 614,000 Coloradans have received a UI payment during some part of 2020. That figure represents 20% of the state's annual average number of employed individuals in 2019, so 1 out of 5. We have updated also on our PDF these monthly number of UI recipients. That's the last chart on the PDF, so make sure to check that out as well. And then finally, a quick update on the status of the UI Trust Fund. At this time, the Trust Fund has a balance roughly between 75 and 100 million. Trust Fund insolvency is still likely later this month, as we expect around 30 to 40 million in second quarter employer contributions to come in the next week or so. 10 states in the Virgin Islands are currently borrowing from the federal unemployment account. Then 8 states, including Colorado, have made loan requests, which means they expect to borrow. And I don't see any questions, so Cher, I'm gonna kick it back on to you again.
Okay, questions for Ryan or follow-ups for Jeff and myself? We did such a thorough job with our update today. We covered everything. Okay. We'll see none. We will actually be sending out a press release after today's call that touches on fraud and the virtual agent deployment update today. So stay tuned for that. That press release will also include Ryan's talking points and a link to this Zoom recording.
Do you want me to touch on Wayne's question?
Sure.
Yeah. So, again, part of it is, and I did talk about this last week, is that we are starting to see declines in benefits, declines in continued weeks claimed, more of a stabilization, I would say. But we're also comparing it to a period with just incredible amount of claims activity. We had over 100,000 initial claims filed end of March, and a lot of that was due to the closure orders. So at one part, I'll say yes, when we compare it to that period, it does appear that the worst is over. But now we're shifting to a period where, is this now, how long does this drag out for? How long do we see claims levels that that are similar to what we saw in the Great Recession, which at that time was the worst recession we'd seen since the Great Depression? So it's kind of, we're taking the steps at a time, monitoring, what are initial claims levels looking like? Continued claim levels, we still have, if you treat a continued claim as like an individual person, we still have over 300,000 Coloradans receiving a UI payment. So while the worst is over, I think there's still a long way to go before we get back to kind of a normal situation in terms of claims activity. In terms of the lack of FPUC reducing initial claims, I think if someone's laid off and they're eligible for benefits, I don't see why they wouldn't necessarily apply just because there's not an FPUC. I'm not aware of any studies that show FPUC, a lack of FPUC would impact someone filing, but I think there's a lack of evidence there that shows that someone wouldn't actually file a claim because FPUC isn't offered. You're still going to receive a portion of your earnings if you're laid off and you're eligible to receive payments.
And we mentioned this last week, just with regard to the future of FPUC. Certainly, a continuation of the existing amount would be the easiest for us from a programming perspective. The more detailed you get in the formula used for future benefit amounts, the more complicated our programming requirements are for our system. And so we have communicated this externally to claimants. We've sent an email blast to all claimants pointing them to additional support and resources, number one. Number two, notifying them that they would be eligible for any retroactive benefits depending on the congressional action. But also just really important to note that of all the proposals being discussed, some are far easier for us to implement than others. And unfortunately, no state has a program that allows them to drop in a simple line of code and modify their benefit payment formulas on the fly, if you will. So that's just important for us to communicate to claimants. There will be a delay, slight to perhaps weeks or significant, depending on how complicated the formula is that comes out from Congress in the next package. So Tamara, I haven't checked the state job board recently. I think as recently as a couple of weeks ago, there were around 50,000 job openings on connectingcolorado.com. That is the state's jobs database. I haven't seen a lot of variance in that number over the last few months that I've been tracking it. But certainly that is a data point we'd be happy to report out on in future calls. Any other questions? Okay, well then with that, I will conclude the call. And if you do have any other questions, you know how to get in touch with us. Again, a press release summarizing today's call with links to Ryan's remarks and the Zoom call will be hopefully out before the noon hour. So thank you so much. Have a great day and a great weekend. See you soon. Bye-bye.